and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books, and welcome to my new hauling seat on the floor. I just find it much easier to do book hauls whilst I haven't got the table here, or my big chair's still broken by the way. It's much easier to do book hauls when we're sat on the floor because there's a lot, and when I'm sat in one of those like dining room chairs, there's nowhere to balance the books. So here we can balance the books on the floor. So I've got a library haul for you today. You will know that I am now keeping a little tab on my hauls this year. I mentioned it in my reading wrap up video that I'm now sort of like making a note of how many books I'm getting out from the library and how many I am actually reading from the library. The same as my other book hauls. So that's going to be very interesting. Today's haul: 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 13 books from the library, all to add to my TBR. I am a member of 2 libraries. There will come a point where I'll stop describing my relationship with the 2 libraries that I'm a member of. But some I have to pay for reservations from, in which case I'm a little bit more inclined to read those guys, and some that I don't have to pay for reservations for. But shall we crack on? So first of all, so a lot of these books are going to be from people's best books of the year and other stuff, but because there's been so much of that going on, I haven't always been able to keep sort of like up to date with where have these come from. You may well recognise them from other people's best books of the year, but yeah, well, you may well. So the first one is What Are You Going Through by Sigrid Nunez. This says, a woman visits a friend who is dying of cancer. Brilliant and stubborn, her friend makes a momentous request. She wishes to end her life on her own terms, and she wants the narrator's help. Stricken, she agrees. I promise, said the friend, to make it as fun as possible. What follows is an extraordinary tale of a friendship given the greatest test to witness unflinching its end. It is also a portrait of the way we live now in a world endlessly troubled by crisis and the dramatically changing nature of human relationships in our time. That does sound good, and also it's quite short. It's just over 200 pages long, so there we go, there's that one. Then this one, I don't think this has been mentioned on anyone's favourites, but I've been meaning to read this for a while, and when I got it out from the library before, it was in a big hardback. I always prefer a paperback. I will read hardbacks. I don't prefer them so much that I wouldn't read a hardback, but I think I saw this on my list of books that are in the library, and I was like, oh, I'll stick a reservation on that. So this is Elizabeth Gilbert's book, who is the author of Eat, Pray, Love. This is a fiction book. New York, 1940, young, glamorous and inseparable, Vivian and Celia are chasing troubles from one end of the city to the other. But there is risk in all this play. That's what makes it so fun and so dangerous. Sometimes the world may feel like it's ending, but for Vivian and Celia, life is just beginning. City of Girls is about daring to break conventions and follow your desires, a celebration of glamour, resilience, growing up, and the joys of female friendship. Love books about female friendship, and about the freedom that comes from finding the place you truly belong. Sounds bloody great, doesn't it? Yeah, sounds very good. This one, which is big, I've seen appear on quite a few people's best books of the year. Babel, this is pronounced, by R.F. Kuang, An Arcane History. Already, the front cover it's just a very beautifully structured thing going over this page to sort of show, I guess, maybe Oxford or somewhere like that. An act of translation is always an act of betrayal. She was right. Oxford, 1836, the city of dreaming spires. It is the centre of all knowledge and progress in the world, and at its heart is Babel, Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, the tower from which all the power of the empire flows. Orphaned in Canton and brought to England by a mysterious guardian, Robin Swift thought Babel a paradise until it became a prison. But can a student stand against an empire? I mean, that does sound very good, doesn't it? Starts with a map of the city of Oxford. Sort of like hard not to enjoy a book set in Oxford, particularly after having read and loved the His Dark Materials books. And then there's a map of Babel as well. As I read these, I put them into sort of like piles of they can wait, want to read this instantly, want to read that quicker. So like, there's like 3 tiers. So like, this is going on the want to read this instantly, so this is going to be added to the TBR for the month. Then I've got a pile of like, don't mind waiting for those, and the next one of like, would be interested in reading. So that's going on the reading instantly. Next book is Dear Sunthuren. This is a Black Spirit memoir by Akwaeke Emeze. I've read a few books by Akwaeke Emeze. Actually, one of Akwaeke's books last year just skimmed missing my top 10 books of the year. You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, which was like a really hot and steamy romance novel, which I enjoyed. But yeah, just sort of missed it. But this is a memoir by Quake. I'm not going to die, I choose to be alive, I choose to let everything else go. It continues to be hard and heartbreaking, as sacrifices always are, but I spend so much of my life unafraid of unfurling, afraid of all the things other people feared in me. There are only a few decades left before I go home. I don't want to waste them being folded. And this is letters, all written through letters, which is a device I love to read in a book. Quake is describing the shape of their life lived in overlapping realities. Through heartbreak, chronic pain, intimacy with death, becoming a beast, this is an embodiment as a non-human, outside the boundaries imposed by expectations and legibility. The book is an account of the grueling work of realignment and making necessary to carve out a future for oneself. So yeah, there we go. Sounds great, doesn't it? Then this is a book that I've got out from the library before and then sent back. And this is one that I'm going to have to read. If I'm going to read it, it's got so many reservations on it, I'm going to have to read it soon. It's The Promise by Damon Galgut. It charts the crash and burn of a white South African family living on a farm outside Pretoria. The Swarts are gathering for Ma's funeral. The younger generation, Anton and Amor, detest everything the family stand for, not at least the failed promise to the black woman who has worked for them their whole life. After years of service, Salome was promised her own house, her own land, yet somehow as each decade passes, that land remains unfulfilled. The narrator's eyes shift and blinks, moving fluidly between characters, flying into their dreams, deliciously lethal in its observation. And as the country moves from an old deep divisions to its new so-called fairer society, the lost promise of more than one family hovers behind the novel's title. It says it's literary fiction at its finest. I need to read this soon if I'm going to read it. Do I add it to the instant pile? There's just something, I don't want too much on the instant pile because I want the instant pile to be instant. Babel has made it to the instant pile. I think that'll make it to the very interested but not instant pile. Next up we've got Woman Eating by Claire Coda. Keep seeing this on everyone's favourites as well. This is about vampires. Lydia is hungry. She's always wanted to try sashimi, ramen, onigiri with sour plum stuffed inside, the food her Japanese father liked to eat. And then there is bubble tea and the vegetables grown by other young artists at the studio she is secretly squatting in. But Lydia can't eat any of this. The only thing she can digest is blood. And it turns out the sourcing fresh pig's blood in London, where she is living away from her vampire mother for the first time, is much more difficult than she'd anticipated. I am so into this. Then there are the humans, the people at the gallery where she interns, the strange men who follow her after dark, and Ben, a goofy grinned artist she is developing feelings for. Lydia knows that they can bring her natural prey, but she can't bring herself to feed on them. If Lydia is to find a way to exist in the world, she must reconcile the conflicts within her, between her demon and human sides, her mixed ethnic heritage, and her relationship with food and in turn humans. Before any of this, however, she must eat. Guys, that's going on instant. I feel very excited about that. I quite like books about vampires. I just do. And then the last one from this library, before we move on to the next library, and she's just torn the, there it is. Oh, there's all sorts in here. I like seeing what, Maths Sixth Form Tie is what someone was using this as a bookmark, and they only got to page 62. So this is called Bunny by Mona Awad. Samantha Heather McKay couldn't be more of an outsider at a small, highly selective MFA programme at New England's Warren University. A scholarship student who prefers the company of her dark imagination to that of most people, she is utterly repelled by the rest of her fiction writing cohort, a clique of unbearably twee rich girls who call each other Bunny. But everything changes when Samantha receives an invitation to the Bunny's fabled smut salon and finds herself inexplicably drawn to their front door. As Samantha plunges deeper and deeper into the sinister yet saccharine world of the Bunnies, the edges of reality begin to blur. This sounds great, doesn't it? Bunny is a spellbinding down the rabbit hole tale of loneliness and belonging, creativity and agency, friendship and desire from one of fiction's most original new voices. That sounds great. That sounds really good. There we go, that's going on the I mean, I don't have to tell you what pile I'm putting everyone on, I suppose, but that's going on the to read soon. It hasn't made it instant. Right, now, next up, we've got the books from another library. And this is where the piling becomes separate, because I like to keep the books separate so that I don't take one book back to another library, because they're both from different county libraries. Right, okay, 7 Days in June by Tia Williams from Reese Witherspoon's book club. Read a few books. Last month, read Honey and Spice, which was on Reese Witherspoon's book club. Don't think I've yet read one that I haven't enjoyed. And also, when I was talking about other books. So many people recommended me this. They said you would like this, either on Instagram or on a video here. This is 7 Days to Fall in Love, 15 Years to Forget, and 7 Days to Get It All Back Again. When Eva Mercy, a single mother and best-selling erotica writer, and the enigmatic award-winning novelist Shane Hall meet at a literary event in New York, sparks fly. What no one knows is that 15 years earlier, teenage Eva and Shane spent 1 week together madly in love. While they may pretend to be strangers, they can't deny their chemistry. This is good. I haven't heard much of this before, like this sort of romance told from this point of view. Over the next 7 days, amidst a steamy Brooklyn summer, Eva and Shane reconnect. But Eva is wary of the man who broke her heart and wants Shane out of the city so her life can return to normal. Before he disappears, though, she needs a few questions answered. That's going on instant read. Right, this one doesn't need to go on instant read. This is the book that I've got out for my book club with my friends. This is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. Hadn't heard of this book when it was suggested. We're discussing this on the 5th of March, so I've got a bit of time. I actually like to read these books as close to the book club as possible, so there's a chance. I don't think I'll read this maybe even till the beginning of March. Could I get through it in 5 days? Let's have a look. It's 365 pages. I think achievable is 100 pages a day, so I could get through that. Anyway, I was very excited to see this author mentioned in Lena's Best Books of the Year. She didn't include this book, it was the other one of Alex Harrow's that she enjoyed, but she said she could have put both on. But this says, every story opens a door. In a sprawling mansion filled with peculiar treasures, January Schaller is curiosity herself. As the ward of the wealthy Mr. Locke, she feels little different from the artefacts that decorate the halls, carefully maintained, largely ignored and utterly out of place. But her quiet existence is shattered when she stumbles across a strange book, a book that carries the scent of other worlds and tells a tale of secret doors, of love, adventure and danger. Each page reveals more impossible truths about the world, and January discovers a story increasingly entwined with her own. That doesn't seem to give much away, I'll be honest. So yeah, I will be reading this at the beginning of March, I imagine. Another book I won't be reading till March because it's the Irish Readathon in March, and this is by an Irish author. This is Homesickness by Colin Barrett. I believe this is 8 short stories that Colin's done. Speaking about people who are from Ireland feeling homesick, or maybe not, maybe people who are living in Ireland. Okay, so it says, takes us back to the barren backwaters of County Mayo via Canada and illuminates the lives of outcast misfits and malcontents with an eye for the abrupt and absurd. A quiet night in the neighbourhood pub is shattered by the arrival of a sword-wielding fugitive. A funeral party teeters on the edge of the world and the next, as ghosts won't settle. A shooting sees an everyday call-out lead a policewoman to confront the banality of her own existence. So there we go. Yeah, so I'll be reading that during the Irish Readathon. Well done, Colin. This one, I didn't realise how big this was going to be. This is Blonde by Joyce Carol Oates. It's humongous, isn't it? If it's that big and it's a paperback, it's 737 pages. This is Blonde, which is what Marilyn, the film that's on Netflix at the moment, which has got Ana de Armas in it, starring as Marilyn Monroe. This is the book that film is based on. I think it's sort of like follows Marilyn's life, but there's definitely a bit of creative license used there from what I understand. I really don't know all that much about Marilyn Monroe's life. I haven't watched the film. I wonder if I would read the book and then watch the film. I didn't realise how big this was going to be, so this is like a big investment piece. I've got a big TBR for the month already. March's reading is pretty much set, as is April's, because I read a lot of books from the long list of the Women's Prize for Fiction in April as well. Will I eventually get to this? I would like to think so. Blonde is a mesmerising novel about the most enduring and evocative cultural icon of the 20th century, the woman who became Marilyn Monroe. A fragile and gifted young woman, Norma Jean Baker makes and remakes her identity. She is the orphan whose mother is declared mad, the woman who changes her name to be an actress, the fated celebrity lover and muse. Told in her voice, Blonde shows a culture hypnotised by its own myths and the devastating effects it had on Hollywood's greatest star. I mean, it does sound really good. If I get round to this, this will be in May. Just thinking, for Patreon book club, sometimes we read, in the summer we read really big books, so I wonder if this might be a good book to put forward for that. Who knows? But there we go. So that is not going to be read soon, but still would like to. Then I've got the book Charlotte by David Foenkinos. This sounds really bleak. Charlotte Solomon is born into a family stricken by suicide and a country at war, but there is something exceptional about her. She has a gift, a talent for painting, and she has a great love for a brilliant, eccentric musician. But just as she is coming into her own as an artist, death is coming round to control her. Death is coming to control her country. The Nazis have come to power, and as a Jew in Berlin, Charlotte's life is narrowing, and she knows every second is precious. So yeah, can't quite remember. Oh, it looks as though this is written in verse. It is. The book is written in verse. That's an intro. I like to read books written in verse. That's going on read soon. And then this one, I am excited about this one. This one might be going on the instant ads. Let's see how the blurb is. I just saw the word vampire as well. This is Certain Dark Things by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Welcome to Mexico City, an oasis in a sea of vampires, said vampires. Domingo, a lonely garbage collecting street kid, is just trying to survive its heavily policed streets when a vampire on the run swoops into his life. Atul, the descendant of an Aztec blood drinker, is smart, beautiful and dangerous. Domingo is mesmerised. Atul needs to escape the city and the rival narco-vampire clan pursuing her. Her plan doesn't include Domingo, but she finds herself warming to the scrappy young man and his undeniable charm. As a trail of corpses stretches behind her, local cops and crime bosses start closing in. Atul and Domingo stand little chance of making it alive before the city devours them, but they are determined to try. That does sound great, doesn't it? More vampires. Ooh. Soon. Not instant, soon. So that's 3 for the instant. So there we go. Those are the books that I got my mitts on in February from the library. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know if there's any here that you think you would prioritise. And I'll see you all again soon for another BookTube video. Goodbye!